How do you keep going when everything seems impossible? How do you not give up? They use words like grit, willpower, vision, resilience, and they expect some kind of motivational quote in return. But the truth is far more brutal. A friend of mine once said something that I think captures the reality perfectly. Starting a company is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss of death. That's not a metaphor. It's a literal psychological description of what it feels like to build something that shouldn't exist. Most people focus on the abyss part, the fear, the uncertainty, the existential risk, but they forget the other half, the chewing glass, because that's the part that never stops. The chewing glass is the endless grind. It's the pain of waking up every single day to face problems you don't want to face. It's staring at broken code, broken supply chains, broken promises, broken morale, and realizing there's no one else coming to fix it. As the founder, as the CEO, you are the final filter. Every unsolved problem flows upward until it reaches your desk. And when it does, you have to eat it. That's the glass chewing. It cuts, it burns, it never ends. And then there's the other half of the abyss. That's not pain. That's dread. It's the moment you realize the company might not make it, that the mission might die, that everything you've poured your life into, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, might vanish into nothing. Most startups fail. That's not pessimism. That's math. And knowing that, truly knowing it, is what gives the abyss its depth. So imagine doing both at the same time, chewing glass while staring into a bottomless void. That's entrepreneurship. That's what it takes to build something that changes the world. Now, people often bring up 2008, and for good reason. 2008 wasn't just chewing glass and staring into the abyss. That year, the abyss stared back. The entire global financial system was imploding. Lehman Brothers collapsed. General Motors and Chrysler were going bankrupt. The air smelled like fear and debt. And there we were, a tiny electric car company called Tesla and a tiny rocket company called SpaceX, both on the verge of bankruptcy. I've called 2008 the worst year of my life, and I mean that literally. At Tesla, we were in what I came to call production hell. We were trying desperately to deliver the first Roadsters. Every part, every subsystem, every test was breaking. We were bleeding money, missing deadlines, and running out of time. At SpaceX, things were even worse. We had just failed our third launch in a row, 3 rockets, 3 explosions, years of effort, and millions of dollars gone in seconds. And personally, I was out of money, all of it. Every dollar I made from PayPal, roughly $180 million after taxes, was already in SpaceX, in Tesla, in SolarCity. There was nothing left. No backup fund, no safety net. I was borrowing money from friends just to pay rent, and on top of that, I was going through a divorce. So when I say 2008 was brutal, it wasn't a metaphor. It was total collapse. There was no safe harbor, no way to compartmentalize the pain. When your job is chewing glass and your personal life is also chewing glass, you have nowhere left to breathe. You just exist in the pressure. Your mind becomes a battlefield between despair and determination. I remember waking up one Sunday morning, right before Christmas that year. I sat there completely numb, and I thought I never imagined I could have a nervous breakdown. But that morning, I understood what that actually felt like. It was like being trapped in a storm that never ends, with no guarantee that the morning will ever come. Everything looked dark. Everything was dark. And in that darkness, I had to make the hardest decision of my life. Both companies were dying. I had maybe $30 or $40 million left, just enough to save one. Every investor I knew said, pick one, let the other die. Like that was the rational choice, the logical choice, the safe choice. But I couldn't. How do you choose between your children? Between the company building a sustainable future on Earth and the company building a future beyond Earth. So I did something that made absolutely no sense. I split the money. I divided it between Tesla and SpaceX, knowing that by doing so I might lose both. It was pure madness. But it was also the only choice that felt right, because at that point, it wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about ego. It was about the mission. And somehow, through luck, timing, and an incredible team that refused to quit, we survived. Tesla closed a critical investment deal on Christmas Eve. Hell won. The Tesla Roadster struggle. To understand Tesla in 2008, you first have to understand why we were doing it. Tesla was never just a car company. From day one, our mission was crystal clear: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Back in 2003, that idea sounded insane. Electric cars? People laughed. They thought EV meant slow, boring, glorified golf carts, something for environmentalists, not for drivers. The last major electric car they remembered was the GM EV1. And what did GM do? They recalled them all, they crushed them, literally destroyed their own electric cars. So if you were around then, electric didn't mean innovation. It meant failure. It meant compromise. It meant dull. That's the mindset we had to fight. And our crazy goal was to flip that narrative completely. We didn't just want to make an electric car. We wanted to make a car that was better than any gasoline car. Faster, sexier, more fun. A car people would actually desire. That was the whole idea behind the Tesla Roadster. It had to destroy the stereotype head on. We said, okay, let's make something that can beat a Porsche or a Ferrari in a drag race. Not close, not almost beat them. A car that could go from 0 to 60 inches, 3.9 seconds. A car that would make people double take when they saw it. That was the birth of Tesla's first insanity. The media and short sellers were pouring gasoline on the fire. They said Tesla was a scam. They said the company was going to die. And they almost got their wish. Then came the Top Gear incident. Back then, Top Gear was the car show. Millions of viewers. And Jeremy Clarkson, let's just say he wasn't exactly an electric car enthusiast. When they reviewed the Roadster, they actually said it was faster than a Porsche 911 GT3 on their track. That was true, it was faster. But that wasn't the story they wanted to tell. The story they wanted was electric cars fail. So they faked it. They claimed the Roadster's battery ran out of charge and had to be pushed into a garage. We had the logs from the car, it never dropped below 20% charge. They staged the whole thing because pushing the car made better television. They said the brakes failed. What really happened, a fuse blew, a technician replaced it in minutes, and the car was fine. But brake failure sounds dramatic. It fits the narrative. It sells the story. That story, Tesla fails, went everywhere. First principles thinking, people often ask me, how do you know you're not delusional? How do you know you're right when everyone, the media, the investors, the critics, says you're wrong? It's a fair question, because the line between insane persistence and stubborn stupidity is very, very thin. When the world is shouting at you that you're failing, when you're sleeping on a factory floor, when you're out of money, when experts, analysts, and journalists all agree that you're done, how do you know if you're chasing a dream or a hallucination? For me, the answer is simple. It's physics. That's how I think. That's how I decide what's possible. That's what I hold on to when the noise gets too loud. I use something called first principles thinking. Most people, and I mean almost everyone, reason by analogy. They look at what others are doing and assume that's the only way things can be done. They say, well, this is how it's always worked, or this is how the experts do it, or everyone in this industry does it that way, so it must be correct. That's reasoning by analogy. It's mental copying. It's using someone else's conclusions instead of doing your own thinking. It's safe, it's comfortable, but it's also how progress dies. That's what Top Gear did when they reviewed the Tesla Roadster. They reasoned by analogy. Electric cars have always been slow and unreliable, therefore this electric car must also fail. They didn't even bother to look at the data. They didn't ask what was actually true. That's not thinking. That's storytelling. It's like copying someone else's homework. You might pass the test, but you never understand the problem. First principles thinking is the opposite of that. It means you take the problem, strip away all assumptions, boil it down to its fundamental truths, the things that are indisputably true in reality, the axioms, the physics, the math, the parts of the problem that are actually real. Then you reason upward from there. You rebuild your understanding from the ground up, not from what other people say, but from what nature itself allows. That's how we built Tesla. That's how we built SpaceX. Let me give you a simple example, batteries, because that's at the core of Tesla. In 2008, Every expert in the auto industry said the same thing. Batteries are too expensive, and they always will be. They said electric cars can't compete because battery costs are stuck at $600 per kilowatt hour. If that were true, Tesla was dead before it began. You can't make a mass market EV at that price. The math doesn't work. So if we reasoned by analogy, if we believed history, we would have stopped right there. But instead, we asked a different question. We asked, what is a battery really? If you break it down, a battery is just a collection of raw materials: nickel, cobalt, aluminum, lithium, carbon, polymers, and some metal casing. So then we asked, what do those materials cost on the open market? We looked it up, we ran the math, and the answer was shocking. If you bought those materials directly, just the atoms, the total cost was about $80 per kilowatt hour. $80. Not 600, 80. So the world was saying $600. Physics was saying $80. What was the difference? That $520 gap, that's inefficiency. That's the way it's always been done. That's humans being lazy, unimaginative, stuck in process. That's not nature's limit. That's our limit. So when Top Gear said Tesla would fail, when short sellers said we were doomed, when analysts said the numbers don't work, I didn't believe they were wrong. I knew they were wrong because physics said so. And physics doesn't lie. As long as something doesn't violate the laws of physics, it's possible. The rest is just figuring out how. That's what keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me going when everything else looks hopeless. First principles thinking is therapy against despair. When you're in production hell, when you're bleeding money and sleep and sanity, you hold on to the laws of nature. If physics says it can be done, then it can be done. And so you keep going. You keep chewing the glass. We applied the same logic at SpaceX. When I first started, the goal was simple: make space travel affordable. And to do that, we needed rockets. So I went to Russia to try to buy one. They offered me a refurbished intercontinental ballistic missile for tens of millions of dollars. One rocket, single use, no reusability. That was the deal. I remember thinking, this is insane. So I went back to the same process. I asked, what is a rocket made of? It's not magic. It's made of aluminum, alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, pretty standard materials. Then I asked, what's the market price for those raw materials? When we calculated it, we realized something wild. The raw materials accounted for only about 2% of the cost of a traditional rocket. 2%! That meant 98% of the cost wasn't physics, it was inefficiency. It was bureaucracy, overhead, waste. It was people saying, that's how it's always been done. So I thought, all right, we'll build it ourselves, we'll design it from scratch, we'll make it reusable. And if we can do that, if we can land and reuse rockets, we can cut launch costs by a factor of 100. That's why SpaceX exists. Not because it was easy, but because the math, the physics said it was possible. And if something is possible, then failure is just the process of finding the correct solution. That's how you separate delusion from determination. You don't base your belief on emotion. You base it on reality, on first principles. Because when everything else collapses, when the media mocks you, when the investors pull out, when your rockets explode, when you're sleeping on a cold factory floor, physics doesn't change, the truth doesn't change. And as long as that truth says it can be done, you just keep going. That's the foundation, that's the philosophy, that's first principles thinking. It's not optimism, it's not faith, it's rational persistence. It's how you survive the impossible. It's how you build the future. Hell 2, the 3 failures of SpaceX. While Tesla was bleeding to death in California, SpaceX was exploding literally in the Pacific. I had founded SpaceX in 2002 with one mission: to make life multiplanetary, to make humanity a spacefaring civilization again. At that time, people thought it was a joke. Every expert said the same thing: you can't start a private rocket company. It's impossible. Only governments can build rockets. But I believe that if humanity was to have a future, we had to become multiplanetary. And the only way to make that happen was to dramatically lower the cost of access to space. So I took $100 million of my own money from the PayPal sale, and I put it all into SpaceX. I did the math. I thought that would be enough for 3 launches. Just 3 attempts to reach orbit. 3 shots. That was it. If all three failed, we were done. Failure one. March 2006, the nut that killed a rocket, our first. Launch attempt. Falcon 1, a tiny, slender rocket built mostly by engineers who'd never built one before. We were launching from Kwajalein Atoll, a small, remote island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The team had been there for months, sleeping in shipping containers, fixing problems by hand with improvised tools, literally building a launch site out of sand, sweat, and willpower. Finally, after endless delays, the day came. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine start. Liftoff. A brilliant streak of fire lit up the sky. The rocket rose perfectly vertical. People were cheering, hugging, crying. For the first time, our rocket was flying. And then at T plus 33 seconds fire, the engine caught fire. It shut down. The rocket lost control, tumbled, and fell straight back down, crashing near the launch pad. Our first rocket was gone. We looked at the data. What happened? The cause was almost absurd. A single aluminum B-nut on the fuel line, a part smaller than your thumb, had corroded in the salt air. That corrosion caused a crack. The RP-1 fuel leaked. When the engine ignited, the fuel caught fire. Game over. A single nut destroyed an entire rocket. We replaced every one of them with stainless steel. We learned, we fixed it, we moved on. That's first principles in action. You don't get emotional. You analyze the failure, you find the root cause, and you fix it. Failure 2, March 2007, the oscillation demon. 1 year later, we tried again. Same island, same team, better rocket. Everything went right at first. Liftoff perfect. First stage burned flawless. Stage separation clean. Then the second stage ignited, and the data started to look strange. The rocket began shaking violently. It's a phenomenon called harmonic oscillation. If you've ever carried a bucket of water and walked at just the wrong rhythm, you know what happens. The water sloshes back and forth. And if you hit that frequency perfectly, it amplifies itself. That's what happened to us, except the water was hundreds of liters of liquid fuel inside a rocket. The oscillations grew stronger and stronger until the engine began to starve for fuel. At T plus 7 minutes and 30 seconds, the engine shut down early. We reached an altitude of 289 kilometers, almost space, but we didn't have enough velocity. So the rocket fell back to Earth. We had failed again, 2 shots, 2 explosions, and only one more attempt left in the budget. Failure 3, August 2008, the darkest moment. By now it was August 2008. Tesla was imploding financially, the global financial system was collapsing, and SpaceX was hanging by a thread. This third launch wasn't just another test. It was do or die. If this one failed, we were finished. SpaceX would be dead, and probably Tesla too. We had to make it work. This time, we had learned from every mistake. We had fixed the oscillation problem. We had upgraded the design. We introduced the new Merlin 1C engine, our most advanced yet. It was a beautiful piece of engineering for the first time, regeneratively cooled. That means the cold fuel flows through channels in the nozzle to cool it before being burned. It's elegant, efficient, the way it should be. We were confident, we were tense, but we were ready. Countdown, launch. The rocket lifted perfectly. First stage flawless. The team erupted in cheers. Stage separation, the moment everyone holds their breath. And then boom, a flash, a collision. Both stages destroyed. We lost the rocket. Again, the irony was painful. The very upgrade that made the engine more efficient caused the failure. Because of regenerative cooling, a tiny bit of unburned fuel remained in the nozzle after shutdown. Just enough to create residual thrust. A small, harmless puff. But after the explosive bolts fired for stage separation, that tiny puff pushed the first stage forward and it slammed right into the second stage. Both were annihilated in an instant. 3 launches, 3 failures. I still remember standing there on the island. Everyone was silent. No one spoke. You could hear the ocean. You could hear your heartbeat. We had poured everything into those rockets. Every dollar, every idea, every ounce of energy. And now it's gone. People think failure gets easier the more it happens. It doesn't. It breaks you a little more each time. That third failure, it almost broke us completely. I had no money left. Investors were done. Tesla was collapsing. SpaceX was out of rockets. We were staring into the abyss. And this time the abyss felt like it was staring back. But here's the truth. Every single one of those failures was necessary. Each one revealed something we didn't know. Each one made us stronger. Each one brought us one step closer to success. That's how engineering works. That's how progress works. You fail forward one explosion at a time. Hell 3, the fourth launch, one shot left. After the third failure, the world thought it was over. And honestly, so did we. 3 rockets, 3 explosions, 0 successes, and 1 rapidly vanishing bank account. We had no money for a 5th attempt. We barely had enough for payroll. Investors were gone. Morale was broken. And the press was vicious. SpaceX is finished. Elon Musk's vanity project goes up in smoke. Another rich guy learns that rockets are hard. They weren't wrong, rockets are hard. But I wasn't doing this for ego. I was doing it because the mission mattered. Because if we couldn't make rockets reusable, if we couldn't make space affordable, then humanity would remain stuck on one planet, vulnerable, fragile, temporary. And I wasn't willing to accept that. So after the third failure, I had a decision to make. Give up or find a way to try one more time. And the truth is, I didn't have the money. We were out, completely tapped. Personally, I was borrowing money from friends just to pay rent, but somehow we scraped enough together. We gathered the remaining parts, the remaining courage, and we built a 4th rocket. This one had to work. There would be no 5th. We called it Flight 4. The team knew exactly what it meant. Everyone had sacrificed years of their lives for this. They had lived on that tiny Pacific island, eating canned food, sleeping in metal containers, working 16-hour days in the blistering sun. No one was doing it for money. No one was doing it for fame. They were doing it because they believed. They believed that if we could just get one rocket into orbit, everything would change. We would prove it was possible. And so, in September 2008, the world went quiet for us one more time. It was launch day. Falcon 1 sat on the pad, gleaming in the morning light. Every system checked. Every bolt tightened. Every calculation double-checked. This time, we had incorporated everything we'd learned. Every mistake, every failure, every scar was baked into that rocket. It wasn't just metal and fuel. It was a physical embodiment of human endurance. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. The rocket rose perfectly. No fire, no oscillation, just clean, beautiful acceleration. The first stage burned exactly as planned. Stage separation, flawless. The second stage ignited smooth, stable. And then we waited. Everyone in mission control was silent. You could hear nothing but the hum of the computers and the breathing of engineers who hadn't exhaled in minutes. Minutes passed, data looked good. Velocity increasing, altitude rising, and then finally the call came through. We have reached orbit. Orbit. For the first time in SpaceX history, a privately developed liquid-fueled rocket had reached Earth's orbit. No government agency, no giant defense contractor, just a small, determined team of engineers and one rocket that refused to die. When that confirmation came in, people in mission control collapsed to the floor. They were crying, hugging, screaming. Years of exhaustion, fear, and failure all released in one moment. We had done it. After 3 failures, after every headline said we were finished, after nearly running out of money, we made it to orbit on our 4th and final shot. That moment changed everything. It proved that you didn't need to be NASA, you didn't need billions of taxpayer dollars, you didn't need a massive bureaucracy, you just needed a small group of insanely determined people who refused to give up. A few weeks later, NASA called. They awarded SpaceX a contract worth $1.6 billion to resupply the International Space Station. That contract saved us. It gave SpaceX the runway we needed to survive and eventually to thrive. It wasn't luck, it wasn't fate, it was the inevitable result of not quitting. Looking back now, that 4th flight is still one of the proudest moments of my life. Not because it succeeded, but because of what it represented. That even when every rational person says you're finished, even when the data looks hopeless, even when the abyss is staring back at you, you can still find a way forward. Because physics didn't say it was impossible. Because the laws of nature still allowed it. Because truth when tested long enough, eventually wins. That's what that launch proved. And that's why if you ever find yourself on your fourth attempt, out of money, out of time, out of strength, don't give up. Because that might be the moment right before everything works. The lesson why pain matters. So what's the lesson in all of this? Why go through all that pain? Why spend years sleeping on factory floors, watching rockets explode, watching companies almost die? Why do that to yourself when you could have retired, lived comfortably, bought islands, and played it safe? Because pain is the test. Pain is the filter. Pain is how you find out who actually means it. When everything is easy, everyone looks brave. When there's money flowing, when the world is cheering, when investors love you, everyone shows up, everyone's visionary, when it's convenient. But when everything collapses, when the sky falls, when there's no guarantee you'll even make it to the next month, that's when you see who still shows up. That's when you find the truth. The truth about yourself, the truth about your mission, the truth about who's there for the dream and who's there for the applause. And here's the thing most people don't want to hear. You need that pain. You cannot become resilient in comfort. You cannot discover courage when things are easy. You can't innovate, you can't evolve, you can't grow if you don't walk through the fire. Every scar, every failure, every sleepless night, it's tuition. It's the cost of learning how to build something that lasts. That's why I say pain matters. It's not something to avoid, it's something to use. When I look back at those years, 2008 especially, it wasn't just the rockets that almost died. It was me. There were days when I felt completely hollow. When you've risked everything and you keep losing, you start to wonder if the universe is trying to tell you to stop. But then you remember, physics doesn't care about feelings. Reality doesn't bend for emotion. If something is physically possible, it remains possible even when it feels impossible. And that's when pain becomes your teacher. Because pain forces clarity. When you're deep in suffering, the noise disappears. The ego, the comfort, the vanity, all of it burns away. What's left is truth. Do you still believe in the mission? Do you still believe it's worth it? Do you still believe the world is better with what you're building, even if it costs you everything? If the answer is yes, then you keep going. That's what pain is for. It's the universe asking, do you really mean it? People often think the hardest part of building something great is money or technology or competition. It's not. The hardest part is emotional endurance. It's waking up when you're exhausted. It's facing another failure when your mind can't take another hit. It's choosing to keep building when logic says, stop. That's where greatness is forged. In the moments when you should quit, but you don't. You see, progress isn't comfortable. It's violent. It's chaotic. It's full of pain and doubt. And that's exactly why most people never do it. They can't stand the glass. They can't stand the abyss. But if you can look directly into that darkness and keep moving, you unlock something that most humans never experience. You become unbreakable. When Falcon 1 reached orbit, people called it a miracle. It wasn't. It was pain converted into progress. Every failure had become a data point. Every mistake had turned into wisdom. Every scar had become fuel. That's the alchemy of building the future. You take pain and you turn it into propulsion. So when people ask me, how do you deal with pain? I tell them, you don't deal with it. You use it. You learn from it. You let it sharpen you until there's nothing left to break. That's the lesson. Because pain isn't the obstacle. It's the forge. And the people who walk through it, the ones who keep going when everything burns, they're the ones who change the world. With future, why humanity must keep going. When you go through all that pain, when you walk through the glass, when you survive the abyss, you start asking yourself a bigger question. What is all this for? Because it's not just about cars, it's not just about rockets, it's not even about companies, it's about something far bigger, something cosmic. The reason I get up in the morning, the reason I put everything on the line again and again, is because I believe humanity has a choice to make, a simple but ultimate choice. We either move forward or we die, where we stand. Right now, we are the only known species in the universe capable of consciousness, of imagination, of creation. We are the only life we know of that can look up at the stars and wonder. And yet we're fragile. We're one asteroid away, one engineered virus, one AI misalignment, one environmental collapse away from extinction. That's not fear, that's math, that's statistics. Every species that has ever existed, more than 99.9% is gone. If we stay on one planet forever, we're signing the same contract. just waiting for our expiration date. So the question isn't why go to Mars, the question is why not? Why would we not try to safeguard the light of consciousness, the sum of all human thought, art, science, music, love, and ensure it continues beyond one small world? That's what drives me. That's what drives SpaceX. That's what this entire struggle has been about. But Mars isn't just a backup plan. It's not some sci-fi fantasy. It's the next great step in human evolution. When you build a self-sustaining city on another planet, you're not escaping Earth. You're ensuring that Earth means something. You're making humanity a multiplanetary species. You're turning us from a local experiment into a cosmic story. And to get there, we need courage, we need pain, we need persistence, because none of this is easy. Colonizing Mars is not a vacation package. It's dangerous, it's cold, it's radiation and dust and isolation and risk. People will die. That's reality. But they'll die for a reason, for something bigger than themselves. And that's the kind of meaning that gives life its power. At the same time, here on Earth we have another frontier, sustainable energy. That's why Tesla exists. It's not about cars, it's not even about profit, it's about survival. If we can't transition this planet to clean energy, we're done. It's that simple. We can't keep burning ancient sunlight and pretending it's progress. We can't keep digging deeper into the past to power the future. We have to evolve, and fast. And that's what Tesla, Solar City, and now the broader mission are all about, to build a world that can actually sustain itself. To prove that green doesn't mean slow, that electric doesn't mean boring, and that sustainability can be exciting, sexy, and completely inevitable. You see, both of these missions, Tesla and SpaceX, they're actually the same mission. One is about saving Earth. The other is about ensuring there's a plan B for life. Together, they form a single philosophy to extend the light of consciousness as far as possible. Because if consciousness is rare, if life itself is rare, then it's the most precious thing in the universe. And we should protect it. We should nurture it. We should spread it to the stars. That's not arrogance, that's gratitude. Gratitude that we get to exist at all, that we get to play a role in this incredible unfolding of reality. Sometimes people ask me, why are you in such a hurry? And the answer is because time is running out. Civilizations rise and fall. We've seen it again and again in history. But for the first time in 4 billion years, we have the ability to consciously steer the direction of life itself. We can either use that ability to destroy ourselves or to become something extraordinary. And we don't have forever to decide. We have this moment, this generation, this window. If we waste it, if we sit still, if we let fear and comfort stop us, we may never get another chance. That's why I push so hard. That's why I demand so much. That's why the glass is worth chewing. Because the future isn't guaranteed. It's earned by those willing to suffer for it. Every rocket we launch, every battery we build, every new problem we solve, it's all a step toward something far bigger than any one of us. It's about giving the universe a voice that can dream, that can build, that can look back and say, we were here, we mattered. That's the point of all of it. That's why humanity must keep going. To the builds of the future, if there's one thing I want you to take away from all of this, it's that you, every single one of you, has a role to play in the future. Not as passengers, not as spectators, but as builders. Because the future doesn't just happen. It's not written in the stars. It's written by human hands. By people who decide that impossible isn't a wall, it's just a temporary diagnosis. I want you to understand something about the world we live in. The systems we depend on, they were all built by people no smarter than you. The bridges, the satellites, the internet, the machines, they were built by people who were scared, unsure, who faced ridicule, who failed again and again, but who kept building anyway. And that's the thing that matters most. Not where you come from, not what degree you hold, not whether you fit in. What matters is that you care deeply enough about a problem to attack it until it breaks. To stay awake at 3 a.m., to stare at the code until it finally compiles, to rebuild the engine that blew up yesterday, to face the abyss and refuse to blink. You see, this isn't about me. It's not even about Tesla or SpaceX. It's about what happens after. It's about what you will do, what the next generation will create. Because the truth is, I won't be here forever. None of us will. But the mission The mission can outlive us. The mission to make life multiplanetary. The mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. The mission to ensure the light of consciousness doesn't flicker out in the dark. That mission, it belongs to all of us now. So I'm asking you, don't settle for comfort. Don't settle for cynicism. Don't join the chorus of people who only criticize from the sidelines. Be the person who builds, because the builders, they are the ones who change the trajectory of history. They're the ones who look at the chaos and say, I can make this better. And then they do. If you're young, this is your time. This is your moment in history. There has never been a better time to start something meaningful. You have supercomputers in your pocket. You have the sum of human knowledge at your fingertips. You have tools that Da Vinci would have called magic. Use them, not to scroll, but to build, to learn, to create, to design the world you actually want to live in. And here's the truth, you will fail. Many times you will be told you're wrong. You will lose money, you'll lose friends, you'll lose sleep. There will be moments when you want to quit, when it all seems pointless, when the glass cuts too deep and the abyss looks too dark. But those moments, they are your forge. They are what make you unbreakable. Because every failure, every setback is another line of code being rewritten inside your mind, turning you into someone who can't be stopped. So don't run from the pain, use it. Let it refine you. Let it shape you into the kind of person who can hold the weight of the future in your hands. One day you'll look back and realize the abyss was never your enemy, it was your teacher. It was there to strip away your comfort, your ego, your fear, until only your purpose remained. And that purpose, that relentless drive to push humanity forward, that's what makes life worth living. So here's my message from one builder to another. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Start right now with whatever you have, with whoever you can gather. Learn, build, fail, build again. And when people tell you it's impossible, smile and show them the math. Show them the physics.
Show them the rocket you built from scrap, the prototype that barely works, and the plan that still just might.
Because that's where the real future begins, not in boardrooms or institutions, but in the minds of people who refuse to quit. So to all of you, the coders, the makers, the engineers, the dreamers, the stubborn optimists, keep building. You are the ones who will light the next path forward.
You are the ones who will turn impossible into inevitable. And maybe, just maybe, you are the ones who will help us make life something more than just a story on one small planet. Let's go build the future.
Together.